Okay, in this session we're going to talk about properly enqueuing style sheets. There are many ways to get style sheets linked in the header of your website. You could theoretically edit header.php in your theme and just type it in there. You can also hook it in there, just hook the HTML into WP_head. Also not the proper way to do it. WordPress has a really wonderful system for allowing you to have dependencies for both JavaScript and CSS files. So you can call those files and say, this file needs to get loaded, but only if this other file is already loaded. That's useful with CSS because then you can have your cascade work properly. It's vital with JavaScript, particularly if you're using jQuery, because you can say, I want to include this jQuery library, but only if jQuery is actually already running. Otherwise, the whole thing blows up. So what we're going to do is in your staff info plugin that we made last time, just make a folder called CSS, and in there, make a CSS file. It doesn't even have to have anything in it. So I made mine topher.css, and mine's empty. We don't really care about actually doing CSS right now. We just need a file that we can include. All right, so then we're going to edit our staff info plugin, the one that we did all that shortcode stuff before. I'm going to put this down underneath add shortcode. And then we're going to take a look at this Smashing Magazine article because it does a really good job. There are two things that happen in WordPress with your, with your style sheets. First, you want to register them. That says to WordPress, I have a style sheet. I just want you to know I have one. Then later, we're going to run another function called WP Enqueue style, which says, remember that style sheet I said I had? I want you to put that in here now. So I'm gonna grab this code and I'm going to simplify it greatly. So you don't want to type all of this yet. Okay, so this one is pulling in two style sheets. We don't need two, so I'm just going to rip the first one right out. I'm going to, oh, you know what? I'm going to change the name of this function. Let's call it Topher Staff CSS. And then in your add action, we're going to do the same thing. So now I have a function called Topher Staff CSS. Inside, I'm running the WP register style function. The name or handle of this style sheet right now is theme-desktop. I'm going to change it to be Topher Staff. You can name yours to be anything you want. Then right here is the path. And this is actually poorly written. And we don't want that. We want this. All right, so what this path says is WordPress knows where all your plugins live. They don't have to live where you assume they normally do in a plugins folder. They could live anywhere. But if you use this function, plugins URL, then it's going to know where they are. So then you want to get CSS/topher.css in relation to the file that is currently running, which is this one. So my folder CSS is a sibling to this file. It's right next to it. And then inside of that is my Topher CSS file. The plugins URL function, we're asking WordPress, where are all my plugins? Happens to be wp-content/plugins. Then, in relationship to this file in which I'm typing, where's my CSS? Well, it's in this CSS folder right next to it, topher.css. Now, the third variable in WP register style is an array in this case. Let's see what they think it should be. Dependencies. So the third variable is dependencies. And in the original script, we registered theme mobile first. Well, we don't have theme mobile, so we don't need that. So there, I have no dependencies. Then the next one is version number. 1.0.0. Then the last variable is media. So this allows you to send the stuff you would send in a normal CSS link tag saying in here only screen and mid-width 960, all that kind of stuff. I don't want that either. So now I have WP register style registering a handle of Topher_staff. The file is css/topher.css. There are no dependencies. It's version 1.0.0, and I'm not sending any extra CSS options. Something very important to note about this. Once you register this 1.0.0, if you change the CSS file and upload it again, it will not see your changes. Because one of the purposes of this is that WordPress caches your CSS to get it out the door faster. It doesn't check the file to see if there's new stuff. It goes by this version number. So if you make a change to your CSS, you want to log in here and change this version number to anything else. You don't even have to keep incrementing up. It just has to be different from last time so that the cache can say, whoa, the version I have is different from the version we're registering, so I better go look at the file. And then it does it forever. During development, this can be a little annoying because every time you change your CSS, you have to go change this number. That means right here, instead of this, you can write stir to time now. And it gives it a number, which changes it. Right. So during development, when you don't want caching, when you're changing it every 5 seconds because you're fiddling with it, then it basically blows up your cache, and then it's fine. And then when you're done, you change it back to 1.0.0, and it lives on forever.
What's the significance of Topher_staff in the WP register?
Right here?
Yeah.
This is the handle for this CSS file. WordPress knows about it by handle.
Okay, it's different than what you actually name the file, though?
Yeah, so it can be anything at all.
Okay.
My big, long, crazy CSS file name. So then we add action to init. We're running this function on init, which is the very, very first thing WordPress does. So we're registering our style with WordPress right away. So now WordPress knows about it. It's not doing anything yet, it just knows about it. So now I'm going to go back to that Smashing Mag article and copy the code for enqueuing. So I'm going to copy all of this. And edit the heck out of it.
After init?
Yes. So, whoop. All right. So this is a very short function. It does two things. First, says, am I in the admin area? Actually, it's asking a question. If I am not in the admin area, then enqueue the style Topher_staff, which WordPress already knows about because we initialized it way at the beginning of WordPress loading. Then the action is WP print styles. And we just add in the function name of this enqueuing. I don't want that comment. All right, I'm going to make sure this worked. And there is my CSS file. Now this is something interesting. My ID for this HTML element, let's see, can I zoom this? Yes. My ID for this HTML element is my handle -CSS. I didn't put -CSS there. WordPress does it on all the handles. So every handle you enqueue with CSS ends up with -CSS at the end. And you can click on it to see if it goes to the right place. I got an empty page because there's nothing in my CSS file. If it had not been there, I got a 404. So now you know how to properly enqueue styles.